Welcome to Creepypasta. Please like, share and subscribe. This will help us make more content for you. Thank you. I fell off a cliff, and when I was rescued my entire reality was different. In February 2020, I was snowmobiling for the first time. My boyfriend at the time was driving all day, and finally let me drive at the end of the trip. We had been dating for 2 months, and this was our first trip together. I'm going around the last bend and I accidentally floor the snowmobile instead of pushing the brake. I go flying off a cliff and end up 50 feet down. The snowmobile is on top of me, upside down, still running with the bottom part spinning. My helmet has flown off, and my head is 1 inch from a tree. I am terrified. My boyfriend managed to roll off the back at the last minute, and is trying to save me, but the snow is really deep and he's having a hard time getting down the steep cliff. My legs are fully submerged in snow with the snowmobile on top, and I'm not sure if I'm paralyzed. He calls for help and all these men run down to save me. When they finally pull me out, I can stand, and it's the happiest moment of my life. I'm not paralyzed, I don't have so much as a scratch on me. Do I have a concussion? Maybe, it's hard to say. The snowmobile also miraculously has minimal damage, only the little plastic windshield part is cracked. In hindsight, this moment is where everything changed for me, but you have to understand, I didn't piece this together and come to this realization until months later. These are the differences. There was suddenly a pandemic. Everything was shut down within a few days. In my old timeline, there was a virus going around, but it had only impacted a few people, and was similar to a norovirus or flu, not big enough to be worried about. I had a different job. At the time, I chalked it up to the pandemic. We were on the trip because I was about to start a new job. I had signed the contract and I knew what the role entailed. I was going to start the Monday after. But after the crash I couldn't get a hold of my new boss for 9 months, and he finally told me I got the job in November, even though I had accepted it in February. He also comments how I've never been into the office when he gave me a tour in January 2020, and we spent the day together. The role I'm in is completely different than the papers I signed. My loving, awesome boyfriend was physically abusive for the first time that night. He got blacked out and attacked me. He was crying the next day, and nothing like this had ever happened before. I thought he was traumatized from the crash and let it go. That was another thing that was different. I would have never let that go before. I come from a loving childhood where my dad was my best friend always. I would have never put up with that before the crash, and was shocked I did. In the old timeline I was on a low dose of Effexor, Xanax, and blood pressure medication. I don't take any medication at all in this timeline. Over the next year a series of weird things that don't make any sense keep happening, to the point I start to feel suspicious. I all of a sudden have an incurable disease I didn't have before. I'm in pictures I have no idea what the context is, I'm wearing clothes I don't own anymore, my friends have memories of me I don't share, and I'm getting more and more depressed. Boyfriend keeps physically abusing me and I can't get out of it, I don't have the will to save myself. I just keep thinking, this can't be my life, this isn't my life, it just felt like I wasn't supposed to be here. And I finally look at Reddit and realize that I died in the snowmobile crash, and this is an alternative timeline I'm in. I start to just agree with friends when they say, remember when you said this, as that, and we went here and did this, but I have no recollection. My CAT scans are normal at this point after visiting the ER. To be honest, I wasn't the most observant person to begin with. A new couch could be in the living room for days and I wouldn't notice. So when all the stores and shops are different in one area of town, I don't know if that was always there or new. I finally work up the nerve to tell my sister, who is surprisingly supportive. She asks what else is different. There was this song in the other timeline, it was a very popular song by a Shania Twain or Sheryl Crow type, anyone would know it. I sing it to her with the lyrics, and tell her we always used to listen to it growing up. She has no recollection of it. I type the words into Google, the song doesn't exist here. The longer I'm in this timeline, the more I forget the words and melody of the old song. Also, There was no iPhone 13 in the other timeline because Steve Jobs was superstitious, and it was supposed to go from iPhone 12 to iPhone 14. I notice little glitches like that are stupid and don't matter. How do I feel about it now? I've accepted my new reality. I feel bad for my sister and parents in the old timeline, that they're dealing with my death in a freak snowmobile accident. But there's nothing I can do. Trying to find them again would be like trying to walk from Canada to Australia with no map, impossible and a waste of time. I'm just making my reality the best I can, now. It clearly for some reason wasn't my time to die, I mean to the point of going to the afterlife, if there's one, so I should do something important if I can. I was always agnostic before this, but didn't believe in different timelines. I thought movies like The Butterfly Effect, and Run Lola Run, were dumb concepts. Now I don't rule out anything ever. Edit, a few people asking questions, I'll answer best I can. First, no, I'm not with that guy anymore, he is dumped and blocked. To answer questions about the iPhone, here is my comment to another user. Jobs died in 2011 in the old timeline as well, but he had planned out the designs for the phones way past when he died, because he knew he had cancer. He had an elaborate release plan of the phones in the future, did he not hear? And yes, he designed them so that the iPhone 13 would be skipped, because he was superstitious. Have I been to therapy? Yes. I've been to multiple therapists, psychiatrists, counselors. I can't find any evidence of the effects of prescription I had, and don't know who would have prescribed it. The bottles were just gone. I don't rule out that I bumped my head, and some bad shit happened to the world after that. This is just my theory. I see a lot of people saying I want to believe you, but I mean, really, that's your choice, doesn't impact me either way. Just wanted to share my story.
Comments. I had a similar accident on a dirt bike. Was knocked out for a really long time, 20, 30 seconds, and suffered some form of amnesia. 2 days after the accident I remember waking up, no recollection of the previous 2 days or even months, and I thought I was in school holidays, but really I was halfway through the first semester of senior year at high school. I also had a job, and only discovered it because the owner of the place I worked at, I knew him, texted me asking if I can come in that afternoon. Getting concussed or knocked out can do horrible things to your memory. It's very, very possible that a lot of these things, that nothing is different, but it jumbled your memories in subtle ways, and you only started noticing discrepancies months afterwards. I'm sorry this happened to you. I still felt the effects of my accident for a few years afterwards. It's very difficult, frustrating and confusing. I'm not trying to discount your experience. There's many theories around how people with near-death experiences can sometimes switch timelines. The fact that your helmet fell off, which never happens if you have the right size and type of helmet that is done up properly, means you likely were concussed in some form, or it was a near-death experience.
Opie. Yeah, I definitely don't discount this as a very real possibility.
I really don't want to disqualify your experience, nor I want to disrespect the sub, but, for the love of God, please consider seeking professional help. What you described feels like textbook derealization. What's that? Well, suddenly, the reality you're experiencing just seems fake, you can't recognize the world around you, everything that surrounds you seems blurry and appears to have changed, usually for the worse. Believe it or not, many people suffer from this at least once in their lifetime, and that mostly happens when something stressful, like the loss of a loved one, pops up into your life. You explicitly told everything begun with a near-fatal accident, and a subsequent assault by your own boyfriend. That's a huge red flag, Opie. I'll abstain from commenting on your relationship, as I know how power dynamics can be difficult to recognize and deal with. But with respect to the general issue, please schedule a session with a professional.
OP. The boyfriend is long gone, and I've gotten professional help from therapists, talked to psychiatrists, and counselors. It could be derealization. Regardless, I've accepted this is my reality now and I'm making the best of it, and I'm happy.
Right around the same time at the beginning of the pandemic, I drove past one of my neighborhood convenience stores, and it looked like it had been closed for years. Boarded up, graffitied, open chain fence around the parking lot property. It was overgrown, and very creepy looking. It wouldn't have tripped me out so badly if I hadn't recalled seeing the convenience store up and running, well maintained as I sat at a traffic light nearby, during the previous day. People going in and out, cars in the lot. One of the biggest trips of my life. After that, I began noticing other buildings in the neighborhood that were different. Instead of a small house packed in between apartments, it was all just apartments. They were housing developments that weren't there just the previous day. And not in the, they must have gone up overnight, kind of way. I tried explaining it to my best friend, who also follows this sub. He humored me, but I know he didn't exactly believe me. The problem with shit like this is that everyone thinks it's bullshit, until it happens to them. Do you have a creepy story? Please share it with us in the comments and we will post it on the channel. Please subscribe. Thank you.